But let's talk about FIFA, guys, shall we? We're just going to go around the clock now because, of course, football as we know it is in a standoff, and probably the beautiful game is at risk of not being the beautiful game. Augie, we'll just start with you just to recap everything right now because, of course, the latest news is the fact that the likes of UEFA, CONCACAF, and now the Asian Federation have threatened to boycott FIFA competitions.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, that was yesterday. So I'm just trying to work out what the latest is because every half an hour there's been an update and it tends to be worse for Infantino. So as we stand right now, everybody that matters has rejected the plan. So the numbers aren't there for Infantino to get his plan to sell off the World Cup in shorthand is what he's trying to do. It's not going to happen. So he's fighting a losing battle to get that over the line. So in the last hour or so, we found out that he's still pushing ahead with his plan to expand the World Cup to 64 teams. And he wants that decision done by the 11th of September. So, you know, just 6 weeks, less than 6 weeks, a huge decision like that, they want to drive that through. So I think Infantino, as it stands right now, is just desperately fighting for survival. And I'm not sure he's going to survive, to be honest, but I think he's alienated so many people, he's humiliated himself and FIFA countless times, the Balogun situation, the proximity to Donald Trump, the Peace Prize, you know, so many other things that he's done in recent months, which make him a laughingstock, basically. So his plan is going down the tubes, and I think that Infantino might follow him or follow his plans with it because he's got no support out there now. He's really struggling to survive, and I think his plan to sell off the World Cup is dead in the water.
Okay, did I read today that his number two's then walked away today, I think, at some point, or his closest allies then left?
Yeah, it's not his number two,
right.
But it's certainly a close advisor, and which is damning in itself, isn't it? If this guy is telling his boss, look, I can't support what you're doing, then what does that say? So the only problem is that with FIFA, it's one member, one vote for the presidential election. So there's 211 associations. At the moment, there's nobody opposing Infantino for his re-election. So right now, it looks like he's going to be re-elected unopposed. And all these smaller nations that he thought were going to vote for his proposal, they're going to vote for him as the president because he's ramped up the FIFA money over the years. So these small associations are getting much more money out of the Infantino regime than previously. So he could still survive in that sense, but I just think he's damaged his brand and his reputation so much that somebody sooner rather than later will emerge as a rival to his candidacy and hopefully see him out the door.
Yeah, Rob, how does this end? Because as we said, you know, now I feel like Infantino has almost passed the point of no return, even though, as Augie said, at the moment, there's no clear opposition against him.
Well, I'm not. The way it looks right now, it ends with Infantino no longer being the head of FIFA. The situation that Don just mentioned there, that Infantino's senior advisor this morning quit. He published a really strong statement during which he called the deal that Infantino wanted to put forward a bad deal. He said he didn't quit because there was no due process. It wasn't because there was no consultation of these member associations. It was that the deal was bad. And I think that's a really damning indictment of what Infantino has tried to do here. The bottom line of this is that Infantino is trying to push through something by telling these member associations that we're going to give you more money. Well, FIFA is sitting on about $4 billion worth of cash reserve with no debt. If Infantino really wanted to boost the development of football across the world with these member associations, he could do it with the click of his fingers. It's not about that at all. And I think that the very fact that his senior advisor, who was also a former banker, by the way, so he knows exactly what he's talking about in terms of football finance and money. The very fact that he's calling this a bad deal for member associations should tell you everything about this deal. I just can't see how it goes forward now. And if it doesn't go forward, Infantino will have to fall on his sword and go, because I just don't see how he survives.
Yeah, Don. And I mean, of course, I know you won't be chasing the story quite like these boys, but just as a son of the game, how do you want to see this end? And is it the only way with Infantino's departure as FIFA president?
Well, it depends on what he says, I think, in the coming days, coming weeks. If he's got someone that looks after his PR department, surely someone's got to pull him into line and say, backtrack a bit. Profile.
I was going to say.
Well, exactly. Stop just churning out these ridiculous headlines, and the money that you're trying to chase, just ease off. The World Cup's been finished in a matter of, a couple of weeks. Just relax. There's still a way back for him, but you can't imagine there's any way back for him the way he's going, because he's just chasing. I think we all know how it's going to end. He's probably going to end in, not chasing so much and just, relaxing a little bit. Then in a couple of years' time, when he goes for re-election, he'll probably win again. It's the same story. It happened with Blatter. It's just the same story that just constantly gets churned out all of the time. Some of the things that he's trying maybe, if you try and put a positive spin on it, to try and say, well, I'm trying to bring more money to some emerging countries, and I'm trying to expand it a little bit to try and give, you know, we were privy to that when we all watched the World Cup. We watched Cape Verde and watched Haiti, and they were fantastic stories. So the expanded tournament off the back of, you know, into 48 sort of worked. You start going into 64 and more, you start to think like whoa, just, you know, just leave it alone for a couple of years.
Can I just say very, very quickly, I think it was great yesterday that UEFA said that they were going to boycott the World Cup. And obviously a lot of fans will think that the next World Cup's in 4 years, so it'll all be solved by then. But there's an under-20 Women's World Cup in Poland in September, and also a Women's World Cup next summer in 2027. It's not fair on women's football for their game to be used as a pawn and all this. This all needs to be sorted before that. It's not fair on the women who are planning to play in that under-20 World Cup and the Women's World Cup next summer, for them to bear the brunt of this fallout. You know, it's one thing that UEFA saying that they're going to boycott these tournaments, and obviously the men's tournament is a huge deal, and we just had one, and I get all that, but it's not fair on the women who have put their life and soul into these games to have that opportunity taken away from them. So it needs sorted out before that under-20 Women's World Cup in September and the Women's World Cup next summer.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's the final round of CONCACAF Women's World Cup qualifying coming up just in September. And as a Jamaican, I want to know if we even will have a World Cup to go to or not. All right. Thanks so much to Augie, to Rob Dawson, and to Don Hutchison. Brilliant chatting to you guys as always. Thanks to everyone for watching. And we'll be back with more ESPN FC Live tomorrow. So join us right here on YouTube.